Hey everybody, it's Mr. P. So we've gone through the preamble of the Constitution and the articles that make up the initial Constitution, and now we're at one of the more important parts, that is the first 10 amendments or the Bill of Rights. Now, when the Constitution was ratified in September of 1789, there was already disagreement about some things that should be included in it. So at that time, they came up with 10 initial amendments to the Constitution. So they were changing it before they even put it into place. These 10 first amendments become our Bill of Rights. They're ratified in December of 1791, and they are some of the things that we still refer to when we talk about the Constitution. We don't talk about those first 7 articles of the Constitution very much, but we talk way more about the first 10 amendments. And that starts with the First Amendment right up there, and that's the one that gives us freedom of religion and freedom of speech. We say that we can't infringe on a free press, and that we cannot take, as a government, we cannot take away any type of peaceful assembly. It gives us the right to protest things that we find unjust, and it allows us to petition the government when we think something needs to change. So Article 1 up there is obviously very, very important. Article number 2, on the other hand, is one that has caused us no end of troubles here, and that is the right to keep and bear arms. So we have this right to a well-armed militia in the Constitution. And if you think about it, that makes sense because we've just left a war where that militia kept us in the fight until we had an army that could step up and do what it had to do. So in that time period, of course, we're going to say, hey, we just got through one government that we thought was tyrannical. We want to have a well-armed militia to, continue to put us in a position where we could fight back if another tyrant is to arise. So that was Article 2 right there, the right to keep and bear arms. Article 3 is one that we wouldn't even think about right now, but it's kind of a little silly that it wasn't in the initial 7 articles, and that is it places restrictions on the quartering of soldiers in private homes. You have to remember that one of those acts that the British passed that really, really upset the colonists was the Quartering Act, which allowed the British to keep soldiers in private colonial homes where the colonists were basically responsible for taking care of them and feeding them when those soldiers were there to control the colonists in the first place. That was something that really upset the colonists, and it's one of the reasons that we went to war in the first place. And as soon as we go to war and win, we forget to make a law stopping us from doing that very same thing. So Article 3, right there, can't quarter soldiers in private houses unless there are very specific situations. Article number 4 in the Bill of Rights, so the Fourth Amendment, it prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures and sets out requirements for search warrants based on probable cause. So a lot of the law enforcement that we see today goes all the way back to Article 4 right there. Gives us the right to, not let the government and the police force run all over us. It's a pretty important one even today. Article 5 sets out the rules for indictment by grand jury. It protects the right to due process and prohibits self-incrimination and double jeopardy. If you're convicted, or if you're accused of a crime, if you're accused of a crime, you can't just be convicted. You have to be given a trial. That's due process. And that you don't have to incriminate yourself, right? You know if you've committed a crime. They can't force you to incriminate yourself. And of course, double jeopardy. If you get cleared of a crime once, they can't charge you with that same crime again for the same instance. So if you do something and get away with it, you have gotten away with it. Now, if you do it again, that's a different story, but they can't try you again for that initial crime, that initial thing. The Sixth Amendment, so we're over here now. On this side of the screen, it protects the right to a fair and speedy public trial, including the rights to be notified of the accusations, to confront the accuser, to obtain witnesses, and retain counsel. They read you your Miranda rights. That's part of that. You get a lawyer. You get a speedy and public trial. They can't do it in private where they can screw you over. It has to be where people can see it, where you can have witnesses of your own, and the government has to let you know what evidence and what the accusations are. They just can't keep you in the dark about the whole thing. That's Article number 6 right there. Article 7, right over here, it provides the right to a trial by jury in certain civil cases according to common law. The jury trial is one of the major important parts of our criminal justice system, and that comes from Article 7 right there. They can't just call you guilty. You are entitled to a trial by jury of your peers. That comes from Article 7 over there. Article 8 down there, that's one you're going to hear a lot about lately with bail reform and things like that. It prohibits excessive fines and excessive bail, as well as cruel and unusual punishment. That can be interpreted a lot of ways. Excessive is a weird word. What's excessive to one person is not excessive to others. But the basic idea of the punishment has to fit the crime, that comes from Article 8 right there. Article 9. Now, Article 9 is probably one of the most difficult ones to understand. We're not really going to go into it too much. It protects rights not enumerated in the Constitution. So there are some rights that you were born with as a person. Okay? There are some rights that the Constitution does not have to give you because you have them already. Just because it doesn't say that you have that right in the Constitution doesn't mean you don't have it. All right, it protects rights that you are born with, protects rights that they maybe didn't think to clearly write out. But just because it's not there doesn't mean you don't have a right to it, which means later on, if it comes up, you can always argue it one way or the other. And Article 10 does the exact opposite for the federal government. The federal government does not have any power not clearly given to them by the Constitution. So while you can go back later and say, hey, I have this right that I was born with, the federal government is not born with any rights. The only rights the federal government has comes from this document right here, the Constitution of the United States of America. They can't just go start claiming rights and powers later on unless it says it here in the Constitution.